Once Edison got into spring motor phonographs, he brought out a series of machines from the least expensive little metal cased one, Jim. Then you had the standard, which was probably his most popular machine. And I see a lot of them when I go to antique shows and things like that. If a machine shows up, it's most likely a standard. And they built them for many years, and there are many different versions, and I'll probably do a video on that. Another one of his most popular machines was the Edison Home. And what I have here is the first iteration of that. In 1895, Edison decided to come out with a modestly priced machine called the Home for home use. It was a 2-minute machine and played wax cylinders. And originally he contracted a clock-making company to build the motors for the machine. So they built what we call the clockwork motor suitcase home. And those machines didn't work really well. They're quite rare. The speed was inconsistent. So Edison realized this motor that was designed, well, it was a complicated and expensive motor because it was built by a clockmaker. So Edison decided, you know, what we need is a more heavy-duty motor that was easier to repair and fix and maintain. So he came out with his own version of that machine with a newer motor. So these ones here, I don't have a clockwork motor one here, but I've got a few different versions of the first model Home, which we call the Suitcase Home simply by the style and shape of the case. So what I have here, I have one, this is the earliest version of the Suitcase Home, really the Model A we call it. And I have one here which is probably just a little bit later on, this one here, and I'll bring you in for a close-up to look at them, and we'll see some of the details and how this one differs from that. And then I did a separate video on this one because this machine is really special. This is one of the early ones, but it is a Polyphone home. So someone's adapted this machine to have 2 reproducers, which gives you a very special sound. And if you're interested, check out the video I did on Polyphone attachments, this part here, and I think you'll be impressed with the sound quality. So this is a special one. The bed plate was redecorated, and the person put the name Polyphone on it. So this was probably something for exhibition. So I'll show this a little bit, but if you want to see more detail on that, check out that video because I'm really going to focus on the 2 versions of the Suitcase or Model A that I have in front of me here. I thought I'd take a minute out to set this up as it would have originally come from the factory. So here it is, an early Edison Home suitcase model with the brass mandrel, the automatic reproducer, and an original funnel horn. I love these horns. They look so primitive. This is the style that would have come with it originally, as would have been on the early standard. I love the decal on this machine. I mean, it really is beautiful. I love the red. They later came out with a decal that was similar, but not with the red on it, and it didn't look to me quite as nice. This one's an incredible shape. Look at that lid. So let's take a look at the machine. These are early machines, and for the homes, later they changed the design quite a bit. This one has 2 parts. There's the upper part here and this huge bed plate here. And another difference between this and some of the later machines is the ID plate is on the front. Get a good look at that. And the bed plate, this is all original. And look at it. This is magnificent. It amazes me that these things survived in such great condition. And this one has a brass mandrel. That's a sign that it was early also. And this reproducer carriage is a little different than on the later homes. It's got this thing here, this screw, to adjust how much this reproducer moves either way. Later reproducers, they fit right in, and there was a little notch here, and so the reproducer stayed in the exact same position. The reason this has this adjustment here is because the lateral movement of the stylus wasn't very much, and so you have to adjust it to fit in the groove of the cylinder. And that wasn't really the best design, because if it wasn't adjusted perfectly, it would do damage to the groove of the cylinder. So this is the automatic reproducer, the one that came with it originally. There was one before this called a standard reproducer, which didn't track very well either. And they upgraded it to this version. And then this lasted for a year or two. And then they replaced it with the Model C, the one that you see on most 2-minute machines. To hold the reproducer in, there's these little swivel arms here. And they go over the reproducer and hold it in place. Let's get a look at the underside of the reproducer. You can see it's quite a bit different. And there's a little wheel here that it glides along this edge here, which later they remove the wheel and it just sits on the metal of the carriage. And there you can see the shaver. One of the reasons they eliminated the shaver on some of the later versions is because they felt the motor wasn't powerful enough to shave a cylinder properly, so they removed the shaver. Here's a Model C reproducer. A little bit different looking. This one still has that tab on it that says reproducer, but it usually wasn't necessary. And it's got this tab here for the weight. And this one, a little different. It allows the needle to swivel a little better. And so it tracks much better and it doesn't have to be adjusted. So this goes in, and because there's a notch here, it'll just sit in the same position every time and work properly. So that was an improvement to the sound quality for sure. The crank on this is the early crank, which has National Phonograph Company on it, Orange, New Jersey. These are quite rare, but it's the correct crank for this early version of the machine. This is the second home. Very similar. The case is really the same. Same beautiful decal. We open it up, and the mechanism is really very much the same. It's got the same carriage. This one, someone's replaced the automatic reproducer with a Model C. So if I'm looking for differences, really the main difference is the ID plate is over here now. Let's get a look at that. And the mandrel is now nickel plated as opposed to just plain brass. But otherwise, really looks to be identical. It's got the shaver and everything. This one's in pretty good shape, but not nearly as good as the other one, which was practically mint. Let's take a look at the special one. As I said, I did a separate video on this machine because it's so special. But let's just take a quick look now that we're here. There's some initials there. Let's look at this lid. Polyphone lid. There's the Polyphone attachment. These are rare. Really, really nice. So check out that video. You get a better look at some of these. And you can see the plate is on the front, so it's probably slightly earlier, especially with the brass mandrel. So this is one of the earliest ones from about 1896. That's when these came out. 1895 was the one with the clockwork motor. So from its introduction in 1896, this version with the Edison's motor, till about 1900, 1901, this was how this machine looked, with, as I showed, very slight variations. Then Edison decided to change the cabinet style and come out with a model with a new style cabinet. So I'll do a video on that next, and you'll see how this thing evolved over time into what you normally see when you see an Edison home.